You don't lose control all at once. It happens gradually through delegation, automation, and convenience.
Tasks get handled for you. Decisions get simplified. Systems start doing exactly what you ask them to do.
And that's where the shift begins.
Because over time, those systems don't just execute, they start shaping outcomes.
What feels like efficiency is often a quiet transfer of authority.
You're still involved. You're still approving.
Yeah.
But you're no longer fully in control.
And most people never notice where that line was crossed.
In this episode, we break down where execution ends and where strategy must remain human.
Because the real risk isn't bad decisions.
It's not realizing you're no longer the one making them.
So we are squarely in the middle of our March arc right now in this deep dive, which is all about this entire journey from, building systems to maintaining control and ultimately holding on to responsibility.
Right.
And when you really look at the mechanics of this, the central theme just hits you right between the eyes. We have this collective illusion that losing control of a business or even just a daily workflow is some dramatic, chaotic event.
Yeah, like a massive hack or something.
Exactly, like a sudden market crash. But it's not.
Yeah.
We don't actually lose control. We delegate it. We just hand it off to make our days a little easier, and then, we just sort of forget where it lives.
It's fascinating because of the sheer invisibility of that process. We constantly hear these anxieties about automation being inherently risky, that introducing software or, algorithms is what causes operations to fail.
Sure, people blame the tools all the time.
They do. But automation itself is completely agnostic.
Yeah.
Systems do not fail simply because they exist. The actual danger, the structural flaw that brings everything crashing down, is unowned decisions.
Wow, unowned decisions.
Yeah, it is the absence of a designated human being who is ultimately accountable for what the machine eventually chooses to do.
Okay, wait, I gotta push back on this for a second because I can feel the immediate pushback from anyone listening right now who spends their life optimizing workflows.
Let's hear it.
Isn't the whole point of a system to stop worrying about it? If I have to constantly monitor every single automated process to ensure it's making the right choice, the system is totally useless to me.
Well, sure. You want to save time.
It's like setting the thermostat in your house,
Yeah.
right?
The entire value proposition of a thermostat is that you stop thinking about the temperature. You set it to 72 degrees, you walk away, and the system does the manual labor of regulating the environment.
Right.
If I have to stand next to it all day, I might as well just build a fire.
Okay, that is actually the perfect mechanism to look at.
Yeah.
Because it illustrates exactly where the trap lies. Setting that thermostat is absolutely fine for execution. You are successfully delegating the physical task of turning a furnace on and off.
Right, which is what I want. Exactly.
Yeah.
But let's play that scenario out. Say a sensor malfunctions while you are on a 2-week vacation in the middle of a freezing winter.
Oh, no.
Yeah. The system incorrectly decides the house is already warm, the heater stays off, the ambient temperature plummets, your pipes freeze, and eventually they burst. You come home to a completely flooded living room.
That's a nightmare.
It is. Now, here is the reality check. The thermostat does not pay for the water damage.
Nope.
The thermostat is not going to call the plumber, and it definitely doesn't lose sleep over the destruction of your hardwood floors.
So the machine did the work, but it didn't hold the liability.
Precisely. The danger was never that the thermostat was running the house. The danger was the assumption that delegating the temperature control also delegated the accountability. You still own the risk of that house flooding.
Man, that hits home.
And this is exactly how operations slowly drift into chaos. We introduce tools, we build these intricate digital workflows, we wire up these incredibly complex integrations to remove friction from our lives. And because the friction is gone, we assume the risk is gone too.
And that quiet drift is really what we need to map out here. Because it never happens in one sudden jump. It always follows a very specific 3-phase degradation.
Right, the 3 phases.
Yeah. Phase 1 is you decide. You are sitting at the wheel, physically making the call. You look at the data, you weigh the options, you pull the trigger.
And that phase is usually where the bottleneck is, which is what prompts phase 2, system assists.
Which is when you introduce the tool, right?
Exactly. Think of mapping software or an automated ad bidding dashboard. The system is gathering the data, synthesizing it, and surfacing a highly educated recommendation. But crucially, you are still actively reviewing it. You are the final point of approval.
And I gotta say, phase 2, that feels like magic. It feels like ultimate peak productivity. You are getting so much done because the cognitive heavy lifting is being handled now.
It does feel like magic.
Yeah.
But that feeling of frictionless success is exactly what accelerates the slip into phase 3. System decides.
Ah, right.
Because the tool is so accurate in phase 2, human psychology kicks in. Our brains are biologically wired to conserve energy. If a machine gives you a correct recommendation 99 times in a row, by the 100th time, your brain stops genuinely evaluating the data.
You just blindly click approve.
Exactly. The handoff is rarely a definitive policy change. It's a gradual psychological drift until one day the system is completely steering the ship and you are just a passenger pretending to be a pilot.
So what does this actually mean for the systems you rely on every single day? It means you have to internalize a hard truth. Systems do not remove decisions, they just move them. And if you aren't tracking exactly where those decisions move to, your control's already gone.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it demands a fundamental change in how we view business architecture. Every single time you set up a new automation rule or integrate a new piece of software, you have to ask yourself 2 questions.
Okay, what are they?
First, what specific decision did I just move out of my own head? And second, who is holding the bag if that decision turns out to be disastrously wrong?
I love that. I actually want to throw this out to you listening right now. Where in your own workflow have you let a system quietly take the wheel without realizing it? Drop a comment below and let us know what decision you recently realized you aren't actually making anymore.
Oh, I bet the comments will be full of examples.
Definitely, because I promise you, once you start looking for this invisible drift, you will see it everywhere.
And the cost of missing that drift is incredibly predictable. When accountability evaporates, the failure states become very distinct. Which brings us to the actual symptoms of abandoned ownership.
Yes, let's talk about what this sounds like when it breaks in the real world, because here's where it gets really interesting. When an unknown system falls apart, it rarely sounds like a highly technical emergency.
Right, it's not a server fire.
No, you don't hear alarms going off, and nobody is sprinting down the hallway yelling about a corrected database. Instead, the failures sound like casual office chatter. They sound like this: I thought the system handled that, or the tool should have caught it.
Those 2 phrases are the ultimate red flags of modern business.
Oh, totally.
When you hear a colleague or even yourself say, I thought the system handled that, you are not witnessing a technology failure. You are witnessing abandoned ownership. It always sounds like confusion, not catastrophe.
It is so chillingly relatable. I mean, I'll admit it, I've been guilty of this.
Oh, me too.
A few years ago, I set up this beautiful, complex, automated sequence for client onboarding. When a contract was signed, Zapier was supposed to trigger an email, create a folder, and alert the team. Well, an API updated, the trigger broke silently, and a massive new client sat in total silence for 2 weeks.
Oh, wow. 2 weeks.
2 full weeks. And when they finally called to complain, my literal first words were, wait, I thought the onboarding sequence caught that. I had entirely outsourced the relationship to a webhook.
Yep, there it is.
Have you heard the phrase, I thought the system handled that, in your workplace this week? Seriously, let us know in the comments, because it really is an epidemic.
The reason you reacted that way, and the reason those specific phrases echo through every office, is rooted in a massive blind spot regarding how work is actually structured. To understand this, we have to divide operations into 2 distinct layers.
Okay.
The execution layer and the strategic layer. The reason people experience that exact confusion when an automation fails is because they have completely collapsed these 2 layers in their minds.
So if I look at my onboarding disaster, the software, setting the email, creating the folder, pinging the team, that has to be the execution layer, right? It's just doing the labor.
Exactly. The execution layer is where all the tangible, digital, and physical labor happens. It consists of your software tools, your automation platforms, your daily workflows, and the actual outputs they generate. This is the realm of pure efficiency.
Getting things done.
Right. It is entirely about doing things faster, doing them at an unprecedented scale, and removing operational friction.
Which is where literally every company spends all of their time, money, and energy. We are obsessed with upgrading the execution layer.
We are, because the ROI on execution is immediate and visible. You see it right away. But that obsession means the second layer, the strategic layer, is left dangerously neglected.
And the strategic layer isn't the work itself, it's the framework above it. It's the tier where the actual decisions are made, where the priorities are established, and most importantly, where the risk is owned.
That is the crucial distinction. Very few organizations intentionally invest in protecting that strategic layer. And that massive silent gap between a highly optimized execution layer and a totally forgotten strategic layer is exactly where accountability vanishes into thin air.
By the way, if you want to make sure you are always protecting your own strategic layer, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube NCWEBDEV channel so you do not miss all the new stuff coming out.
Definitely. And it is so vital to actively define and defend that strategic space. Because if you don't intentionally claim it, your execution tools will naturally expand upward to fill the void.
Right.
And they will do it without taking any of the legal or financial liability. Think about automated hiring algorithms. An HR team is overwhelmed, so they buy software to automatically scan and filter thousands of incoming resumes based on keyword matching.
Which is pure execution layer.
Right. But over time, they stop reviewing the discarded resumes. They start trusting the software implicitly.
They slide into phase 3. System decides.
Yes. And suddenly, the algorithm is deciding who even gets a chance to interview. The HR team has unwittingly allowed an execution tool to take over the strategic layer, the profound responsibility of deciding what kind of talent the company actually values.
And when they realize 6 months later that they've missed out on brilliant candidates because the tool filtered them out, they will say, I thought the tool was catching the best people.
Exactly. They expected software to own a strategic risk.
Okay, so we have diagnosed the core problem. The gap between the execution layer and the strategic layer is essentially eating our accountability alive. How do we actually fix it? What is the practical mechanism to stop this from happening?
Well, it starts with a rather surprising, almost jarring definition of what strategy actually is. Because the rulebook for this states explicitly, the strategic layer is not thinking.
Which is a profound paradigm shift. In corporate culture, we constantly equate strategy with intellect. We think strategy means like leading the brainstorming session or writing clever 5-year plans.
Or just being the most visionary person in the room.
Right, but that is incorrect. The strategic layer is entirely about the ownership of decisions. True strategy answers 3 unforgiving questions. Who has the authority to decide? Who accepts the financial or reputational risk? And who is going to be held accountable when it fails?
I think that fundamentally changes how a lot of leaders view their jobs. Strategy isn't just having the brilliant idea, it's being the person whose neck is squarely on the chopping block if the idea tanks.
Yeah, that's heavy.
It is. And that leads us directly into the ultimate law of navigating these 2 layers, which is known as the delegation rule.
A delegation rule.
Yeah. The delegation rule is what draws a hard, impenetrable boundary between the 2 layers. On one side of the line, you have everything you can and should delegate. You can absolutely delegate execution. You can hand off tasks, coding, email drafting, data processing, and the actual manual labor of carrying out a decision.
Sure, give it to a system.
Right. You can give all of that to a junior employee, an offshore team, a software program, or a machine.
But on the other side of that boundary is the untouchable stuff. You cannot delegate responsibility. You cannot delegate accountability. And you cannot delegate the ownership of outcomes, no matter how advanced the system is that produced those outcomes.
This completely unravels how most people try to game the system. People attempt to delegate responsibility all the time to avoid stress. But you cannot transfer responsibility. When you try to hand it off to a machine, it doesn't move. It just becomes invisible.
You simply make the failure untraceable until it eventually surfaces and explodes.
Exactly.
Which brings us to the elephant in the room. We have to talk about AI. Because artificial intelligence feels like it actively blurs that boundary. It doesn't feel like a thermostat. It feels like something that can take ownership. Because it's generating novel ideas, writing code, and speaking to us in natural language.
It mimics strategic thinking.
Yeah, it really does.
It mimics it beautifully, but it does not possess it. AI is not a separate category of business architecture. It is not some magical third layer that sits between execution and strategy. It is simply another execution layer.
A really good one, though.
It is breathtakingly capable. It operates at light speed and is massively scalable. But the true danger isn't the technology itself. The existential risk to a business is a human, assuming the AI owns the decisions it executes.
So AI is basically like a hyper-efficient intern, not the CEO. You can have the intern draft the contract, but you wouldn't let them sign it without looking.
Right.
But wait, what happens when the execution layer gets so good that checking its work feels like a waste of time?
That's where we need to upgrade our metaphors here. AI is not just a hyper-efficient intern fetching coffee and drafting memos.
Right.
We need to think of AI as a high-speed bullet train.
Okay, a bullet train.
It is a phenomenal piece of execution engineering. It can get you across the country in record time. But if you are the conductor and you decide to fall asleep at the console because the train is running so smoothly, you aren't checking the track switches.
Oh, I see where this is going.
And suddenly you end up in the wrong city, derailed, going 200 miles an hour. And the The train doesn't care. It has no liability. It just executed its programming flawlessly.
And that analogy perfectly captures the mechanism of failure. And the reason we fall asleep at the console is it's actually a documented psychological phenomenon called automation bias, leading to human-in-the-loop degradation.
Yes.
When a system like a high-speed train or an advanced large language model operates with extreme proficiency, the human brain stops actively supervising. The cognitive load required to constantly verify a highly accurate machine is exhausting.
It's exhausting, so we subconsciously downgrade ourselves from active supervisors to passive spectators. We stop checking the track switches.
And when we stop checking, we violate the delegation rule.
Exactly. The delegation rule remains absolute. The exact same laws of accountability apply to a generative AI model as they do to a macro in a spreadsheet or a conveyor belt in a factory. Someone human must own the outcome.
The tool never, ever does.
Never. If an AI hallucinates a non-existent legal precedent and includes it in a court brief, the AI doesn't get disbarred.
Yeah.
If an automated algorithmic system misfires and leaks sensitive data to a client, the algorithm doesn't get sued.
The human being who set the parameters, trusted the output, and deployed the tool is the one on the hook.
You can point the finger at the software all day long, but you own the risk.
That is a wildly sobering reality check. You can scale your execution to absolute infinity, but the accountability remains stubbornly entirely human, sitting squarely on your shoulders. It forces you to look at your entire tech stack through a completely different lens. Every tool is just a liability multiplier if you aren't paying attention.
Which is the perfect setup for the April Bridge. We've spent this entire deep dive establishing one unshakable fact. Human ownership is the bedrock of any functioning operation. You can build the most elaborate, beautiful workflows, you can structure your decision trees perfectly, and you can introduce the most cutting-edge artificial intelligence on the market.
But none of it holds together if no one owns the final outcome.
Yes, exactly. Clear, undeniable human ownership is the foundation. But as we move forward, a massive lingering question remains. Once you have established that bedrock, once you know exactly who is holding the bag, can the system itself actually be trusted over time?
And that is exactly where we are going to leave you today. It's the ultimate puzzle for anyone building a modern business. Once you've successfully drawn the line between your strategic ownership and your daily execution, and you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that you are the one on the hook, how do you measure the hidden decay of a system's reliability while you aren't looking?